Well, hello, and welcome into Legacy Beyond Wealth. This is the Axio Wealth Management YouTube channel, and we got a good show to start things off. We're going to give you a little background on Axio and Rob, as you see a little bit in this four-part series. Today, I want to start off a little bit with the business. But Rob, good to see you. How are you?
Oh, great. Thanks, Ben. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking forward to, doing these videos, this content with you. I know education is important to you. And before we kind of get into a lot of what you do day to day on the financial planning side and how you help families, I want to kind of get into a little bit of background on you. We're going to break this up into a four-part series. So make sure you subscribe to YouTube. We'll kind of be dropping these videos out over the next couple of weeks. But when I talk about the business, we'll get into you a little bit on the personal side, talk about some of the people that you work with, who the ideal client is, and then talk about your planning process a little bit as well. So we'll have those coming up. And again, if you want to get in touch with Rob, everything will be in the description below. But Rob, let's start off with the business first and a little bit of background on kind of how you got started, because not everybody finds their way into financial planning or being a financial advisor. But how did you find yourself into this business?
That's great. I would say it was a little bit by accident. Was in college. My ultimate career choice during that point in time was to become an attorney. I joke that a lot of my family are either attorneys or doctors or educators, and so I'm the one that kind of fell off the wagon a little bit, if you will. But as I was going to college and going into pre-law, I got fascinated with finance, and the more I got into it, the more I fell in love with it. And there was a pretty big pivotal moment. If it's okay to share with you a little bit about my why and what really motivates me. My wife and I had just got engaged, and it was on Father's Day that my family had invited my now wife to be able to come over and meet the family. And while we're at the dinner table there, something unusual happened, and that is that out of the corner of my eye, I saw my Uncle Dean pull up in his truck. And the reason that was so unique is because Uncle Dean was a local doctor in the ER, and every holiday he had to work. And so to see him pull up to a family function was pretty unique. He knocked on the door, and my dad excused himself to go answer the door, and things got really quiet as everyone tried to listen into the conversation. And I remember my dad coming back and asking my grandma and grandpa to join him in the other room. And my uncle had come to inform my grandma and grandpa that my other uncle, Neil, had tragically passed away. And he was in Hawaii with his family on vacation. And he ended up having a heart attack under the ocean while he was scuba diving, and wasn't able to make it. And I remember being at the funeral and everyone coming up and asking me kind of these questions. It's always a little bit awkward sometimes at funerals where people quite don't know what to say. And so they go maybe to the extended family member and say, hey, is Uncle Neil's family going to be okay? And it was kind of that point in time that I wanted to be able to dedicate myself to the profession, to be able to help families answer with a resounding yes, that their family's going to be okay. Maybe it's not so much a tragic event like the passing of a loved one, but it might be the windfall of money that comes into play, or having to deal with children and raising them, and issues that may come up through there, or asset protection, or any number of things that could be able to happen. And so that's really been what's motivated me over the years, is that experience and that calling, if you can, to be able to help successful families answer that question.
Yeah, it's a powerful story, and sorry that you had that experience. I know that's obviously one that changed the course of your life, and I can tell that it means a lot to you and what you do day to day. And a lot of people might get into this business because they enjoy the numbers, they enjoy the puzzle of putting that all together, which I'm sure you do. But it sounds like just personally and professionally, a lot of this has to do with the people you work with and those connections and those families that you're helping out.
Yeah, and that's one thing I think that is missing out there in the world today is one of the major components in business, and that's actually caring about the client. And we don't want to have thousands of clients that are out there. We want to make sure we work with a select few successful families that we can really drive to have that impact on, to really feel like we're executing and making a difference for that client. And honestly, that's what what is the motivation, is when you can see the success of what your efforts have been with the client and knowing and helping them drive to what's most important to them.
We'll talk a little bit about how you do that then, and we'll get into your planning process a little more detail here in another video coming up pretty soon. So make sure you subscribe to the channel to check that out. But just kind of give us a high level look at kind of how you help people in those families through that planning process.
Yeah, I think one of the more crucial elements, if you will, to be able to help families out, and one that I think is missing a lot in our industry, is what I'm going to call the human element. Sometimes it feels like, I don't know if you've ever felt this way before, Ben, you go to some type of a service, and I hate to pick on any specific industry, but you go to that specific service and you feel like everything has been laid out almost like a Henry Ford assembly line, and you're just a number in that assembly line, and they're just working, and you've lost that human element, if you will. And so one thing that really drives us is having that upfront, in-depth personal discovery. There's not a fact finder or a fact sheet that you're going to have. We start with a yellow pad and just start asking questions back and forth. And while we have some guiding principles in 7 key areas, there's nothing that's set. We want to make sure we drive down till we really have a good understanding of the client. And so I think that's maybe one really important aspect, is that human element.
Yeah, it's important. Everybody's trying to automate things, right? It's all about finding efficiencies. And I know we'll probably have some discussions about AI over the course of our videos coming up in the future, because, a lot of people are leveraging that to help them with planning in a lot of ways. But there is a lot to be said about having that connection and being able to work with someone that truly understands kind of what your, not only your goals are, but kind of what you're going through, and trying to put all that together to really help you live that life that you kind of see in the future.
Absolutely.
Very good. Well, look, I want to kind of wrap up with one kind of final question. Again, we're going to get into a lot more about you and what you do, away from work. But what's the most rewarding part of the work that you do in this industry? Maybe you have a story that comes to mind, or someone that you've worked in the past. But I'm curious, what has been the most rewarding thing for you?
It's a great question. God, there's so many to choose from. I think, in general speaking, really being able to make a difference in a client's life when they come back and they've accomplished what it is that they've set out to, or one of their goals, and they can come back and say, gosh, Rob, working with you, we know we couldn't have done it without having your help along the way and your team's help. That to me is so rewarding to be able to have out there. If I could maybe share, kind of started the episode off with a little bit about the passing of my uncle. If I could talk a little bit about maybe another bookend, one that really drove home for me, where I felt like we started making that difference in people's lives. I had a client that had called me. It was his wife, and she mentioned that her husband's in the hospital, which was weird because I just met with him what felt like just a few weeks ago, and he had contracted some rare form of a cancer that was very aggressive. And I went right down to the hospital, and it still sticks with me today. Made sure that he couldn't talk a whole lot. It was kind of a soft, hoarse whisper, but he kind of grabbed my arm and pulled me down by the bedside, and he said, "Make sure you take care of my wife." And you talk about reaching goals and success and things of that nature, but being entrusted with someone's family, to be able to have that level of trust and to be able to make good on that trust, I think is what really drives us to really want to see those results and be most rewarding for us.
Yeah, I mean, that's the highest form of trust right there, I think, when somebody can talk to you in that moment and trust that you can take care of the people that are most important to them. And that's why you do what you do at Axio. And again, if you have any questions, want to learn more, hopefully this episode kind of gives you a little bit of background into the business itself. But you can find everything online, axiowm.com. We'll drop that link again in the show notes, the description, so you can always get in touch that way. Or as well, you'll see the number on the screen, but 801-717-9237. And if you do want to have that call, maybe have that first meeting, learn a little bit more about the business, kind of figure out how Axio's tailored collaboration can help elevate your financial future. Encourage you to get in touch. And just quickly, before we wrap up here, Rob, anybody that does have that kind of first meeting that maybe says, hey, I do want to learn a little bit more, what do y'all talk about in those first conversations?
Gosh, that's a great question as well, Ben. One of the first things we're going to go over is what they're trying to accomplish. What's their goals that they want to be able to have? We'll also dive a little bit into relationships. It's interesting. I feel like I should have got a degree more in psychology than I did in finance, because it seems like money is so psychological, and relationships have a big part of what plays into money. And so we'll dive a little bit into those relationships. Obviously, we'll talk a little bit about assets and the professionals that they're using, and how they feel about those professionals. One of my favorite things is expectations, and seeing what they expect out of a professional that they work with, and making sure that we feel like we can meet that expectation.
Awesome. Very good. Well, everything's again in the description if you want to get in touch with Rob, but appreciate your time as always. Excited to learn more about Axio in the future. We'll have a 4-part series coming up to kind of kick things off here on YouTube. So join us by hitting subscribe, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Ben.